Alright, in this video we're going to take a look at doing more tolerancing. In this case we're going to use a tolerancing block that you see here. So we'll learn how to make those in AutoCAD, and we'll also learn how to make these engineering datums. Now there's some special rules about making these. The one that has this label of B is no problem, but the one with the A on it is we're going to have to do a little something different to it to achieve that. And lastly, that you see here is an isometric drawing here at the top. I'll save this for last. It's not required, but I'll do all the other stuff and then I'll do this last. Okay, let me go ahead and close my properties box and I'll start creating this drawing. Start with a line. I'll go over a distance of 50. I want to make sure that I turn ortho on. Let's go over 50. Now we're going to go up a height. And I see the 32 on the side, and I'm going to add the radius to that of my overall arc here. And you can see the width of this is 24. So that means that I need to add 12. So 12 plus my 32, that should give me 44. Come back to the left here, a distance of 10. Okay, so my overall height is at 44. I have to subtract that 12 now, that's going down. So 44 minus 12 is going to be 32. Let's go to the left, a distance of 30. Let's go back up, and in this case you can type in 32. I'll just touch this endpoint and then track from it. Do a left click here, touch this endpoint and track from it here, click here, and then C to close. Okay, so this is a projection, so I have to keep the other one in line with it. So I'll start the line here. In this case, let's use a polyline. Let's go to Polyline, and I'm going to start that polyline just from tracking at this endpoint, and I'm going to go over a distance. Let's make it 30. Let's go here to the right, a distance of 24. I'll go up 32. I'll choose the arc function. Now my ortho is still on. I'm going here to the left. I can touch this endpoint and track off of it. Go left click here and then close it. But before I close it, I do need to switch back to the line. So go to line and then go to close. Okay. I'll go ahead and put some of my hidden lines and things of that nature in after I complete my circles. So I'll start with a circle. Center diameter. It's going to be located at this center. Diameter is 8. I'll create another circle, center diameter, and it has a diameter of 10. Now I'll go ahead and put my construction lines in to show where my hidden lines are. So I'll choose construction line, horizontal, and I'm going to select these quadrants. And then I'll select this endpoint. Alright, now we're ready to start trimming. So let's go to trim. And now I have to determine which one of these lines am I going to keep and which one am I going to get rid of. Since in this right side view I can see this circle here completely, that tells me that on this one that these are the lines that I want to see. So I want to see these two outside lines. So I will trim between here, and then that allows me to see that these are going to be the lines that's going to appear on this side. Okay, so looking at this bottom view, I'm just going to trim off these portions here, and I will escape. All of these super long lines, let's just go ahead and delete them. So I'm going to select these lines and erase them. Okay, so it looks like we did all of what we need to complete the drawing. Let's go ahead and insert in our title block. And I'll use the classic insert. And the reason I like to use the classic one, it's a lot easier than the new one that they changed. This one, I just browse to the location of where my title block is, and in this case we'll use a B size. And make sure that all of this stuff is unchecked. Hit OK. And it should bring in my title block at the 0, 0 location. Next, we need to adjust our scale factor, and this is going to be a metric drawing. So in this metric column, I will use the ones that are located here. And I think I'm going to start off with either 2 or 4, and then I'll work from there. Go ahead and select your title block. Right-click, Properties. In the Scale X, Scale Y, and Scale Z, that'll be 4. I'll make this one 4. You can see that that is not big enough to give me what I need. So I'll go up to 8. And this should give me plenty of room to complete what I need to complete. But I want to leave a little bit more room for that isometric drawing in the top. So I'm going to adjust this to 10. Okay, so now we have our scale factor. We can fill in our title block. So you see where it says scale. It should be 1, space, colon, space, and 10. For the project name for this one, let's just call it a bracket. Go ahead and fill in the name at this time. Okay, so now I'll adjust the line type scales. So LTS, enter, and then I'm going to set this to whatever I scaled it up to. In this case, it'll be 10. Let's go ahead and position our drawing on the inside of our title block. So I'll use the Move command, select the objects, pick a base point, and then I'll make sure that I turn ortho off. That looks like a good position to place it. Let's go ahead and change these lines that you see to the hidden lines. So I'm going to select all 4 of them. And in my Properties box where it says Layer, select the drop down and choose the word Hidden. This one has center lines in it, so I'll use the Center Layer command and set the value to center. This is also a metric drawing, so I'm going to change the extension by using the Center EXE command and adjusting that to 5. Let's go ahead and put our center marks on. So underneath Annotate, I want you to select Center Mark, and then you could select that circle. If you want it to be bigger than that, or you want it to stick to the outside of that, you can delete this one. And you can choose Center Mark and choose your arc. For the lines that go in between here, I'll use the Center Line command. I'll select these 2 lines, and that'll give me the bisection between that. And I'll do the same for these 2 lines. Okay, now we have adjusted all of our center lines into our drawing. Next step is to go ahead and put our dimensions on. First, let's set our dimension layer. So all of our layers come in on the right. All our dimensions come in on the right layer. Let's go ahead and adjust our dimension style by selecting this icon. Modify. I usually like to start at the Lines tab. I'm going to give myself just a tad bit more room here. So I'll make it, let's go with 0.8. Underneath symbols and arrows, let's go ahead and set this to none. the text height for this one. I like to be consistent, but we'll make it, let's go with 0.125, or better yet, make it 0.13. So make the value of that 0.13. I'm going to leave this at horizontal, fit. This needs to be the same as my scale of my title block. So this is my scale factor. Primary units. Select in the drop down. Leave it at decimal and change your precision to whole numbers. OK, and then close. Now I can see that I have some dimensions stacked underneath the bottom of this, so I'm just going to move this up to give me a little bit more room. So I use the move command. Just move these objects up. I'll start with a linear dimension. I want my baseline to start from here, so I'll select this endpoint to this endpoint, and I'll place my dimension. Switch to the Annotate tab, and then choose Baseline. Choose this endpoint, and finally this endpoint. You can see that gap in there is a little bit too much. We can adjust that still with the Adjust Space. Select the 10, and then select the other two dimensions. Hit the Enter button. And then you have to decide what spacing you want in between it. In this case, I think I'll go with, let's see what 5 looks like. Looks good to me. Let's go back to the linear dimension. Select this endpoint to that endpoint. Now I want to keep this one in line with my dimension over here at 10. So I'm just going to touch this endpoint. And that way I can get the tracking from it. Do a left click here, and that'll make sure that they stay in line. You can choose baseline if you like, or you can use another linear dimension from this endpoint to this endpoint, and just keep it in line with the 40 by selecting. Don't click on it, just touch it, and then track from it, and left click. So that way all of my dimensions are in line with each other, go in this location, or this direction. Let's do a linear dimension from this endpoint up to this endpoint and place the dimension here. Let's do a couple of diameter dimensions. So let's go to Dimension, Diameter, select this circle. I'll place that dimension here. And then I'll do the inside circle and dimensioning here. Let's do our last linear dimension, which is from this endpoint up to this endpoint. Okay, so now we have some dimensions that have some basic tolerancing around it. So I'll select this dimension, and then I'll select the one that has 32. Go over to my properties, scroll all the way to the bottom to when you find tolerance. Tolerancing display. In the drop down, choose basic. On my dimensions, or diameter dimensions, you can select both of them. Go in your properties window, scroll all the way down till you come to dimensions. Select dimension display. In these cases, it would be a deviation. You can see the upper limit of these is set to 0.15. The lower limit is going to be set to 0. The tolerancing precision needs to be at 2 decimal places. I have a leading 0 on there that I need to suppress, and I'll slide this column over just a tad bit more so you can see that in the tolerance suppression, I want to suppress the leading 0, so that'll become a yes. And then I want to suppress the trailing zeros. I'll make that a yes. Let's go ahead and hit escape to clear the properties. And you should be able to see that these two dimensions do look like the drawing. Next thing I want to do is I want to add that tolerancing block that is located here. The command for it is just simply tolerance, and here's the icon for it. Select the icon, you will get a dialog box that appears. I will set this and set the position. The tolerance in this one has a diameter symbol, so check in the dark box. Type in your tolerance. You have a material condition, and then you got a tolerance A and B. Set this one to A and the datum here to B. Okay, for the second line of my tolerancing, I will also set this one to position. I have a diameter set here. The tolerance for this one will be 0.1, and I'll have a material condition on this one as well. Go ahead and select OK, and then locate it near your diameter dimension text. Now I can move this up a little bit just so I can make sure that I get the text underneath this. So I will select this dimension. I will select the grip that has the text on it. Just kind of move it up. Escape twice, and then let's go ahead and move our tolerancing block underneath it. I just chose to use grips and move that, or you can use the regular move command. Let's go ahead and type the text underneath it. So we're going to use single line text. I can pick my start point. The text height of this, I want it to be 0.13, and you have to multiply that, remember, by 10. So in our case, the text height should be 1.3. The rotation angle is 0, and now I'm ready to type in my text. So I will type into coaxial holes. Do a left click somewhere and then hit the escape button. Let's go ahead and move this up, and I'll do it with the grips. I'll just select the text, select this grip, and then put it in the position where I want it. Okay, so now let's talk about doing these datums. The way we're going to do them is that we cannot use the multi-leader option. Well, we can, but I really don't like using it for this one. The commands that I typically will use is called quick leader, or you can use an old command, a little bit older than that, called leader. If I start with the leader command, the way this works is that you type it in, and you can even see that it does not have an icon next to it. Really old command. If I select it, it's going to ask me for a start point. I'll just click a start point here just to show you as an example, and then it's looking for the next point. I'll click here, then I'll go to format it. So I'll choose format, change the arrows. Let's see, and once again I will apologize, this is an old command. Let's see, let me go to annotation and click the first point. Okay, so I hit the enter button just to get me out of the tolerancing one, or get me out of the annotation one. Choose tolerance, and now in here I can put the letter A. Hit OK, and it was going to put that tolerancing on there for me. The reason why this is still an arrowhead, I'll adjust that here in a second. I like to use the quick leader command, and it combines from the leader, and it just makes it a little bit better. So if I use quick leader, I'll go down to settings. This is going to give me a dialog box that's going to appear. So starting with annotation, I can tell it that I want a tolerance. And underneath my lines and arrows, I can change, and this is all the stuff that's in the leader command. I can change the arrows to the datum triangle field. Select OK. And now when I place my quick leader, I'll do one left click here, drag out this direction. Let's put ortho on. Then I'll place my tolerance. So I did one click to start it, one click to where I want it to be, hit the enter button, and you're going to get the tolerancing dialog box to appear. From here you'll type in B. Select OK, and it will make that tolerance with no problem. Now when I go back and use the leader command, it will take the properties that I set in the quick leaders and use that one. In my opinion, it's always just easier to use quick leader as opposed to adjusting the setting in the quick leader command just to come back and use leader. But I will show you that if I use the leader command, now you're going to see that I'm going to get that closed field at the end. Okay, so let me go ahead and delete this one. And let's go ahead and move this one. So I can select it. I'll go ahead and select that grip. Spacebar one time to put me in a move. I'll just put it on this end point. When it comes to doing this one, you can't use the regular quick leader like we just did. If I choose quick leader, I'll place my first point and I'll come down and do a left click. Now I'm happy with everything and I hit the enter button. I'll fill in my datum, which is A. There we go. And you're going to see that this leader is going to kind of give a little kick out to it. The way you get around that is that usually when I use quick leaders, I go to settings. Underneath here, I usually set this to none, and then I'll create my tolerancings and just copy them over and over again. So now when I create my datum for this one, I'll select the nearest to that dimension line, pick a location for where I want my dimension or where I want my end of my leader here to be, and then do a escape. I'm sorry, hit enter after that, and then you have your quick leader set. And I'll do that again because I know I kind of rushed through that one. So let's go to quick leader. I'm just typing in QL enter. I adjusted my settings, made this to none. Okay. I want it to be somewhere on this line. You can select this midpoint if you like. So one left click here. Come down to wherever you see the triangle appear. Do a left click here, and then hit the enter button. That's going to set that leader for you. And then simply use the tolerance with your datum set to A. Okay. And place it here. And then we can move it. So I'll choose move. Select this text or this box from this midpoint to that endpoint. Okay, one of the other things I can do is I can add the notes here at the top. And I'm going to use Multiline Text to complete this one. So let's go to Multiline Text. I'll select here and kind of make a box over it to here. I'll start typing in the text we want. So you can see it says note, colon, enter, untoleranced, dimensions, R, and you remember you can type in the %% P to give us plus or minus, 1.3 and one behind it, then I can close this. Now you can see that this text is set up to be 1.3. I think that's the standard text of what we had all our dimensions to be. And if we want to adjust the top of this one, we can adjust the note to be just a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to double click back onto this. I'm going to highlight the word notes. And if I want it to be twice as big, where I'm at in the text location, you can type in 2.6, hit enter. You're going to see that that will make that twice as big. Let's go ahead and close this. Okay, so at this point you have completed everything you needed to do for this one. If you want to stick around and watch me do the isometric, you're more than welcome to. Okay, so if you're going to do isometric drawings, remember we have to set AutoCAD up in an isometric. I'm going to click this icon. Make sure that you have your ortho on when you're creating these. Now you can either choose to get the dimensions from over here by measuring, and that's simply just doing a linear dimension from this end point to maybe this end point, and you can see that that's 20. I just deleted that dimension so I can get those references from my actual drawing. Let's start by creating a line, and let's go down a distance of 32, and once again I'm in isometric left. I want to go down a distance of 32. Let's go to the right a distance of 50. Let's go back up 32. I'll go to the left here a distance of 10. I'll go down a distance of 20. Back this direction a distance of 30. Let's go up 20. And then we can simply close it. Choose the copy command. I'm going to select these objects here. Enter. Pick a base point. Then I'm going to switch to isometric right. I'm going to go this direction, and this is going to be the thickness of my part, or the width. This is 24. Let's draw a line to connect this endpoint to this endpoint. Remember, we want to create an ISO circle here, and I'm in ISO, and remember I'm back in isometric right. I haven't changed. The way we're going to create that is type in EL, and that starts me in the ellipse command. Now I'll get the ISO circle option. Now I have to locate the center of that. Well, the center of that is 12 located from here. So I'm just going to touch this endpoint and track this direction. Distance will be 12. Enter. And now I'm just going to click on this endpoint. Let's trim off the bottom portion of this. Use the copy command. Select your arc you just created from this base point, and then I'm just going to select this endpoint, and this one on the back. Let's switch to isometric left. Start a line from this quadrant going all the way to this quadrant. Trim. And I'm going to trim off these bottom portions of these arcs. And I did need that arc on the front of this one, so I'm just going to undo that really quick. I do need that end point, and I'll trim off the one here in the back. And let's go ahead and trim the line in between here as well. Okay, let's go ahead and escape this. You can draw a line. And let's switch to isometric right. Let's draw a line from this endpoint. Let's go down 20. Then I'll come over to this endpoint. You can see that I have a piece of this showing, and I have to switch to isometric top or left to complete that one. Let's go to isometric left. Draw a line from this endpoint going right up to this endpoint. Or not endpoint, just make sure you go past that arc. Okay, let's go ahead and erase this line here at the bottom. Let's trim this. So I'll use the trim command and take care of that portion. Now let's go ahead and put our ellipses on the inside of these two. Have to use the ellipse command, and remember you have to type it in, EL, enter, ISO circle. I'm going to switch to ISO right. I'll click this center. And this circle has a diameter, so select diameter, 10. Let's do that again for the other one. So EL, enter, ISO circle, select the center of this arc, choose diameter, set the value to 8. Now I can scale this down. Remember that an isometric is nothing more than a picture. So use the scale command, select your isometric that you created, pick a base point, which is here, and then you can scale this down. Let's make it 0.25. See how big that gives us. Okay, I'm just going to move this over into our picture, or into our title block. Let's turn our ortho back off. And another thing I'm going to do is get out of isometric drafting by selecting this icon. And then we're going to scale this up just a little bit. Let's go to scale, select this object again, pick a base point, and let's try 1.25. That gives me a little bit more room. I think I'm happy with that. We had one more dimension that I did leave off on here, and it's that R dimension, 2xR. The way you would do that is that you can use a radius dimension, select your arc, I'll put it here, escape. Now I'm going to edit this just by typing ED, enter, and I'll select this dimension. I'll delete, so I hit the delete button on my keyboard, 2x space R. Go ahead and close it. Okay, so if you stuck around with me this long and you hung out with me to complete the isometric, some kind of things that you do, but this is kind of one of those dying arts. And every time I get a chance to show you how to do the isometric, I will, but it's not really required. Okay, so I want to thank you for watching this one, and I'll definitely see you on the next one.